I raised my son alone after his father died, worked 3 jobs to buy our family home. 25 years later, my daughter in law storms into my kitchen, grabs the deed from my hands, and screams those words that shattered my heart forever. Here's how I fought back and reclaimed everything. If you've ever felt betrayed by family or had someone try to steal what's rightfully yours, this story will shock you. Make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell because what happens next will leave you speechless. Trust me, you won't want to miss how this ends. My name is Margaret, and I'm 58 years old. 25 years ago, I became a widow when my husband Robert died in a car accident, leaving me with a 7-year-old son named Danny and a mountain of debt. I could have given up. I could have moved back in with my parents or accepted government assistance, but I had a dream. I wanted to give my son the stability of owning our own home, something that would be ours forever. So I worked. God, how I worked. During the day, I waitressed at a busy diner downtown, smiling through the exhaustion and pretending my feet didn't ache from standing for 8 hours straight. 3 nights a week, I cleaned office buildings after everyone went home, scrubbing toilets and emptying trash cans while Danny did his homework at the front desk. Weekends, I catered small parties and events, carrying heavy trays and serving people who barely acknowledged my existence. Every penny I didn't spend on absolute necessities went into a savings account. I bought Danny's clothes from thrift stores and cut his hair myself. We ate pasta and beans more nights than I care to remember, but I never let him see me cry about it. This wasn't about sacrifice. This was about building something permanent, something no one could ever take away from us. After 3 years of this routine, I had saved enough for a down payment on a small 3-bedroom house in a decent neighborhood. It wasn't fancy. The kitchen was outdated, the carpet was worn, and the front porch sagged a little, but it was ours. I remember the day we moved in, how Danny ran through every room shouting with joy, and how I sat on those front steps that first night just staring at the key in my hand, hardly believing we'd made it. Danny grew up in that house. I watched him learn to ride his bike on our driveway, helped him with homework at our kitchen table, and celebrated every birthday and achievement within those walls I had worked so hard to provide. He brought friends over, and later, girlfriends. That house wasn't just where we lived. It was the foundation of our entire life together. When Danny graduated college and landed a good job at an accounting firm, I was so proud. All those years of sacrifice had paid off. He was successful, independent, and ready to start his own life. I had done my job as a mother. But I never expected what came next. Danny met Lisa at a work conference. She was 26, 12 years younger than him, with blonde hair, perfect makeup, and a way of talking that made everything sound like a question. The first time he brought her to dinner, she walked through my home like she was evaluating it for purchase. "This place has so much potential," she said, running her finger along my dining room table. "With the right updates, it could be really beautiful." I tried to like her. I really did. Danny was clearly smitten, and I wanted him to be happy. But there was something about Lisa that made me uncomfortable. She had this way of making suggestions that sounded helpful, but felt like criticisms. "Margaret, have you ever thought about modernizing this kitchen?" she'd ask sweetly. "These cabinets are so vintage." Or she'd comment on my furniture, my decorations, even my clothes, always with that same concerned tone, as if she was genuinely worried about my poor taste. After 6 months of dating, Danny announced they were engaged. I was happy for him. Truly I was. But Lisa's behavior became even more intrusive. She started talking about their future plans, which apparently included a lot of opinions about my house. "Once we're married, we'll probably want to help Margaret update this place," she told Danny right in front of me. "It's important for property values, you know." The wedding planning was a nightmare. Lisa wanted everything to be perfect and expensive, and somehow I found myself contributing more than I could afford. "It's just that Danny's father isn't here to help," she explained when asking for money for the reception venue. "And you want your son's wedding to be special, don't you? How could I say no to that?" After they married, Lisa's suggestions became more frequent and more pointed. She'd visit and immediately start rearranging my living room furniture. "I hope you don't mind," she'd say after I'd come home to find my couch moved and my family photos relocated. "I just thought it would flow better this way." When I gently asked her to check with me first, she laughed and said, "Oh, Margaret, you're so set in your ways. Change can be good." Then the conversations about my future began. Lisa would sit me down with a cup of coffee and talk about how hard it must be for me to maintain such a big house all by myself. There are some lovely senior communities nearby, she'd suggest, places where you wouldn't have to worry about yard work or repairs. You could make friends your own age and not feel so isolated. I tried talking to Danny about Lisa's behavior, but he always took her side. Mom, Lisa's just trying to help, he'd say. Maybe you should consider what she's saying. This house is a lot of work, and you're not getting any younger. Those words cut deep. My own son, the boy I'd sacrificed everything for, was suggesting I should give up the home I'd worked 3 jobs to buy. But I stood my ground. This was my house, bought with my blood, sweat, and tears. I wasn't going anywhere. That's when Lisa started spending more time at my house when I wasn't there. Danny had a key, of course. He'd always had one. And Lisa began using it freely. I'd come home from grocery shopping to find her going through my mail or looking through my file cabinet. I was just trying to help organize, she'd explain. Your paperwork is such a mess. I started hiding important documents, but the violation of my privacy was infuriating. One day, I caught her photographing the deed to my house with her phone. When I confronted her, she claimed she was helping Danny understand the family's financial situation for their future planning. The audacity was breathtaking, but when I told Danny, he said Lisa was just being responsible about their future inheritance. Inheritance? I was 58 years old and in perfect health. The casual way they discussed my death and their inheritance made my blood run cold. This was still my house, and I was still very much alive. The breaking point came on a Sunday morning in October. Danny called me, sounding panicked. Mom, Lisa's in the hospital, he said. She had some kind of reaction to medication, and they need insurance information. Can you come down here and help me with the paperwork? I'm too stressed to think straight. Of course I rushed to help. Any mother would. At the hospital, Danny handed me a stack of forms and asked me to fill them out while he went to check on Lisa. The paperwork looked official. Insurance forms, medical history, emergency contact information. I signed everything without reading it carefully because I was worried about Lisa and wanted to help my son during what seemed like a crisis. It wasn't until 2 weeks later that I discovered the truth. I was organizing my files when I realized I couldn't find my house deed. I tore my bedroom apart looking for it, then called the county records office. What they told me made my knees buckle. According to their records, I had voluntarily transferred ownership of my house to Lisa Thompson, my daughter-in-law. The transfer had been notarized and filed 2 weeks ago. Mixed in with those hospital forms I'd signed were property transfer documents that looked identical to the insurance paperwork. I confronted Danny immediately, my hands shaking as I held the phone. How could you do this to me? I cried. How could you help her steal my house? Mom, calm down, he said, but I could hear the guilt in his voice. Lisa explained everything to me. You signed the papers voluntarily. She said you wanted to transfer the house to avoid probate issues later. I never agreed to any such thing. Those papers were mixed in with hospital forms. You lied to me, Danny. You both lied to me. Mom, you're getting confused. Lisa showed me your signature. Maybe you just forgot. I hung up on him. My own son was gaslighting me, trying to make me believe I was losing my memory or my mind. The betrayal was so complete, so devastating, that I couldn't eat or sleep for days. But Lisa wasn't finished with me yet. 3 days later, she showed up at my house, with an attorney, a thin man in an expensive suit who barely looked at me as he spread documents across my kitchen table. Mrs. Margaret, he said in a cold, professional tone, my client has legal ownership of this property. We're prepared to be reasonable about a transition period, but you'll need to make arrangements to relocate. I stared at Lisa, who was standing in my kitchen with her arms crossed, looking like she owned the place, which, according to the law, she apparently did. This is fraud, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I never agreed to transfer my house. The attorney shrugged. That's not what the legal documents indicate. Mrs. Thompson has a properly executed and notarized deed transfer with your signature. If you have concerns about the validity of your signature, you're welcome to pursue legal action, but until then, she is the legal owner. After they left, I sat in my living room and cried harder than I had since Robert died. This wasn't just about losing a house. This was about losing everything I had worked for, everything I had built for Danny and me. It was about being betrayed by the son I had sacrificed everything for and the woman I had welcomed into our family. But the worst was yet to come. The following Sunday, I was in my kitchen making dinner, pot roast with potatoes and carrots, Danny's favorite meal since he was a child. I was hoping maybe we could talk. Maybe I could make him understand what Lisa had done to our family. I heard the front door open and footsteps in the hallway. Lisa appeared in the kitchen doorway, but she wasn't the sweet, concerned daughter-in-law who had been pretending to care about my well-being. Her face was hard, her voice cold and commanding. "We need to talk," she said, walking directly to my file cabinet and pulling out folders I hadn't even known she'd seen. "What are you doing with my papers?" I asked. She laughed, actually laughed at me. "Your papers? Margaret, this is my house now. These are my papers." She held up the deed transfer, the one I'd unknowingly signed in that hospital waiting room. "Everything in this house belongs to me." I felt my heart hammering against my ribs. "Lisa, those papers were fraudulent. You tricked me into signing them." "Prove it," she said, stepping closer to me. "Prove that I tricked you." "You signed them willingly, in front of a notary, with Danny as a witness. No court in the world will believe your story." That's when Danny walked in, and I turned to him desperately. "Danny, please, you have to tell the truth about what happened. You know I never agreed to give away my house." But my son, my precious boy that I had worked 3 jobs to provide for, just stood there looking at the floor. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Lisa moved between us, her voice rising. "Margaret, I've been patient with you, but this has gone on long enough. You're an old woman who can't take care of this house properly. You can barely afford the utilities, let alone the repairs this place needs. Danny and I are young and successful. We can actually maintain this property. This is my home," I said, my own voice getting stronger. "I bought this house. I worked 3 jobs to pay for every square foot of it. You have no right—" That's when it happened. Lisa stepped forward, actually pushed me aside with her hand, and shouted those words that will haunt me forever. "This house is mine now. Get out." The force of her words, the pure venom in her voice, made me stagger backward. I looked at Danny, waiting for him to defend me, to protect his mother the way I had protected him his entire life. But he just stood there, silent, letting his wife throw me out of my own home. "You have 30 days," Lisa continued, her voice deadly calm now. 30 days to pack your things and find somewhere else to live. I'm being generous by giving you that long. I don't remember much about the next few hours. I think I went to my bedroom and locked the door. I remember calling my sister in tears, trying to explain what had happened. She was horrified but didn't know how to help. "Maybe you should call the police," she suggested. But what could I tell them? My daughter-in-law had legal documents with my signature on them. For 3 days, I barely left my room. I kept expecting Danny to come to his senses, to realize what Lisa had done and how wrong it was. But he never came. Lisa, meanwhile, started bringing contractors to the house, walking through my home and discussing renovation plans as if I wasn't even there. On the 4th day, something inside me snapped. I wasn't going to let them destroy me. I might be 58 years old and I might not have much money, but I wasn't going to roll over and die just because some greedy woman wanted to steal my life's work. I started making phone calls. First, I contacted a legal aid society that helped seniors with fraud cases. The attorney there, a young woman named Carol, listened to my story with growing anger. "This is elder abuse," she said firmly. "What they did to you is criminal fraud, and we're going to fight it." Carol connected me with a private investigator named Frank, a retired police detective who specialized in fraud cases. "I've seen this before," he told me during our first meeting. "Family members who manipulate elderly relatives into signing away their assets. The good news is there are ways to prove fraud if we can find the right evidence." Frank started investigating Lisa's background, and what he found was shocking. This wasn't the first time she'd been involved in property fraud. She had a history of targeting older men and women, gaining their trust, and manipulating them into signing over assets. She'd been married twice before Danny, and both previous husbands had filed restraining orders against her. Meanwhile, Carol was building a legal case. She found irregularities in the notarization of my deed transfer. The notary's stamp was expired, and there was no record of me appearing before the notary on the date indicated on the documents. She also discovered that Lisa had been forging my signature on other documents, including some of my utility bills and insurance forms. We have enough evidence to prove fraud, Carol told me after 2 weeks of investigation, but I want to give you the option of confronting them first, letting them know what we've found. Sometimes people will voluntarily correct their mistakes when they realize they're caught. I thought about it for a long time. Part of me wanted to surprise them with criminal charges and watch Lisa get arrested. But another part of me, the part that still remembered Danny as my little boy, hoped that maybe he could be saved from this woman's influence. So I arranged one final confrontation. I called Danny and asked him to meet me at the house, what I still considered my house, for a conversation. I didn't tell him I'd be bringing backup. When Danny and Lisa arrived that Saturday morning, they found me sitting at my kitchen table with Carol, Frank, and a police officer. The look of shock on Lisa's face was almost worth everything I'd been through. "What's going on here?" Danny demanded, but I could see the fear in his eyes. "Sit down, son," I said quietly. "It's time you learned the truth about the woman you married." Frank opened his folder and spread out the evidence: Lisa's criminal history, the forged documents, the expired notary stamp, the proof that I'd been tricked into signing papers I thought were insurance forms. "Your wife is a criminal," I told Danny, watching his face go pale. "She's committed fraud, elder abuse, and forgery. She's facing serious jail time." Lisa tried to bluster her way out of it, claiming the evidence was fake, that I was a bitter old woman trying to frame her. But when the police officer started reading her rights and explaining the charges against her, her facade crumbled completely. "You can't prove anything," she screamed as they put handcuffs on her. "That old woman is senile. She doesn't remember what she signed. But we could prove everything, and we did. Lisa was arrested and charged with multiple felonies. The deed transfer was invalidated by the court, and ownership of my house was returned to me. She eventually pleaded guilty to avoid a longer prison sentence and was sentenced to 3 years in state prison." Danny begged for my forgiveness, claiming he'd been manipulated and controlled by Lisa. And maybe he had been. She was clearly skilled at manipulation. But the fact remained that when I needed him most, when his wife was stealing everything I'd worked for, he had chosen her over me. I forgave him because he's my son and I love him. But I also changed the locks on my house and made it clear that our relationship would be different from now on. Some betrayals leave permanent scars, and while I could forgive, I could never forget. Lisa served 18 months in prison before being released on parole. She's banned from contacting me or coming within 500 feet of my property. Danny and I have slowly rebuilt our relationship, but it's taken years, and it will never be the same as it was before. As for me, I'm still in my house, the house I worked 3 jobs to buy, the house I nearly lost to a con artist who saw an opportunity to prey on a widow's trust. I've made some updates over the years, not because Lisa was right about needing them, but because I wanted to make the space truly mine again. I learned some valuable lessons from this experience. First, never sign anything without reading it completely, no matter who asks you to or how urgent the situation seems. Second, trust your instincts about people, especially when they're trying to pressure you into making major decisions. And finally, never underestimate your own strength and worth, no matter how old you are or how alone you might feel. Can you believe the nerve of some people? If this story taught you anything, it's that you should never let anyone walk over you, even family. What would you have done in Margaret's situation? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this story moved you, smash that like button and subscribe for more incredible true stories. And remember, sometimes the people closest to you are the ones you need to watch most carefully. I'll see you in the next video.